There exist 7 specific lethal environments that will systematically dismantle your trajectory if you don't exit them immediately. The majority of men spend their entire existence imprisoned within these spaces, perpetually questioning why advancement never materializes. They remain completely blind to the reality that the very rooms where they feel most protected are the ones executing their destruction. The most lethal individuals in your existence don't carry weapons. They carry familiarity. Machiavelli issued a warning that echoes through centuries. A man's collapse rarely originates from his adversaries. It originates from the environments where he feels most secure. You believe you're socializing. You believe you're building your network. You believe you're simply reconnecting with familiar faces. You're fundamentally mistaken. You are navigating a social minefield with every passing day, and you cannot perceive the tripwires beneath your feet. Machiavelli understood that the most efficient method of dismantling a man isn't to attack him directly. It's to place him in an environment where his ambition enters a state of permanent hibernation. There exist certain rooms, certain circles, and certain conversations that are architecturally designed to keep you diminished, financially stagnant, and psychologically weakened. Most men walk directly into these mechanisms with expressions of contentment on their faces, perpetually confused about why their existence feels cemented in place. Consider the final occasion you sat within a circle of companions and discharged your frustrations about your difficulties. You experienced relief, didn't you? That sensation wasn't peace. That was the scent of your authority departing your body. You didn't receive a solution. You received sedation. You exchanged your dominance for a brief moment of sympathy. And every individual in that room witnessed your transaction. In this world, there exist 7 zones of destruction that will strip away your authority, expose your vulnerabilities to your adversaries, and transform your iron determination into fragile glass. If you currently inhabit one of these circles, you aren't relaxing. You are being harvested. Your energy is being systematically extracted. Your competitive edge is being dulled. And the individuals you consider companions are the ones holding the blade. Today I am unveiling these 7 lethal environments. I'm going to demonstrate why the shoulder offered for comfort is actually a blade positioned at your back, and why being the dominant figure in your current environment is a slow-motion execution. We begin with the most addictive mechanism of all, the location where most men go to perish before they have even been interred. If you value your trajectory, do not divert your attention. The first environment you must eliminate completely is this, the Sympathy Circle. You might recognize it as the group conversation where everyone discharges frustrations about their supervisor, the establishment where you gather to discuss how unjust the world operates, or the dining table where you unload the weight of your failing venture. This is the most addictive and destructive environment a man can inhabit. It is a circle where the primary currency is shared trauma, complaints, and excuses. Examine your Friday evenings. Examine that group conversation you check every morning. What constitutes the primary subject matter? Is it about expansion? Is it about strategy? Or is it a collective session of discharging frustrations about how unjust the world is, how insufferable your supervisor is, or how the economic system is manipulated? You believe you are finding comfort here. You believe you are unburdening yourself. But Machiavelli understood something that remains invisible to you. Pity is a narcotic, and like any narcotic, it delivers pleasure while it executes you. Every occasion you open your mouth to discharge complaints to this circle, you are hemorrhaging authority. You are revealing to every individual in the room precisely where you are vulnerable, where you are suffering, and where you are exposed. You believe they are listening to assist you, They aren't. They are listening to feel superior to their own failures. When you communicate your difficulties to a companion and they respond with, "I understand, it's difficult out there," they aren't supporting you. They are validating your mediocrity. They are granting you permission to remain precisely where you currently exist. They want you to remain in the dirt alongside them, because if you ever actually extracted yourself and achieved success, your existence would function as a permanent reminder of their own cowardice. Within the house of pity, no individual wants to witness a victor. They want to witness a fellow casualty who renders their own lack of effort feel justified. Examine the faces within that circle. They aren't the faces of predators. They are the faces of a herd huddled together for warmth, while wolves circle the perimeter. Every occasion you participate in this discharging of frustrations, you are training your consciousness to pursue pity points instead of power. You are learning to value the relief of being heard over the results of being respected. A man who exists comfortably being pitied can never be feared, and a man who is not feared will never achieve true sovereignty. The danger of this environment is that it feels moral. It feels human. Society tells us that vulnerability constitutes strength. That is a fabrication manufactured by those who want to keep you controllable. In the architecture of power, vulnerability is a map for your adversaries. Within the house of pity, you are distributing that map without charge. You are communicating to every individual around you. Here is precisely how you can break me. Here is what generates fear within me. Here is why I'm not advancing. You must recognize that every conversation you engage in is either a negotiation or a confession of defeat. If you aren't discussing how to acquire leverage, you are likely confessing that you possess none. When you sit in this circle and recount your losses, you are solidifying your status as someone who loses. You are instructing your social circle to categorize you as a liability. They might smile. They might offer a shoulder. But they are internally filing you as someone who exists beneath them. They are savoring the generosity of their own attention. This environment dulls your competitive edge. It transforms your iron determination into fragile glass. You begin to believe that at least I have my companions constitutes a valid substitute for I have achieved my objectives. It doesn't. Your companions within this circle will be the first to vanish when you actually require something that demands effort on their part. They exist solely for the shared misery. The Sympathy Circle is a burial ground for ambition. It is where men go to inter their aspirations beneath a pile of mutual understanding. If you remain here, you will experience a quiet, comfortable death, surrounded by individuals who will mourn at your funeral because they're relieved it's you in the casket and not them. You are being harvested for your attention and your shared defeat. If you want to survive, you must recognize that you don't need a shoulder to cry on. You need a strategy to win. You don't need understanding. You need results. The relief you experience when you discharge your frustrations is actually the sensation of your drive escaping your body. It is the sound of your competitive spirit being smothered by a pillow. Walk away from the venting sessions. Abandon the group conversations that focus on what's wrong instead of what's next. Stop seeking individuals who understand your pain and start seeking individuals who demonstrate action. The house of pity is warm. It's inviting, and it is a death mechanism. Every second you spend there is a second you are granting the vultures permission to continue circling. This is the first gate. It's the most accessible mechanism to fall into because it feels like home. But if you lack the fortitude to leave the individuals who comfort you in your failure, you will never possess the strength to stand among the individuals who challenge you to achieve victory. You are being domesticated by your own social circle. You are becoming a household animal in a world that demands a predator. Break the circle. Eliminate the need for pity. Recognize that the silence of your struggle is the foundation of your future strength. If you remain in the house of pity, you are already interred. The only question is how much additional earth you're going to permit them to throw upon you before you finally cease breathing. The sympathy circle is merely the beginning. It's the environment that executes your spirit. But the next two locations don't merely execute your spirit. They steal your identity. They make you believe you're achieving while you're actually being utilized as a prop for someone else's ego. We're advancing deeper into the killing fields. If you believed the House of Pity was dangerous, you aren't prepared for the Table of Unearned Respect. You've escaped the warmth of the herd, but now you're entering something far more deceptive. Most men spend their existences pursuing a seat at a high-status table, believing that proximity to power is identical to possessing it. This brings us to the second killing field. 2. The Table of Unearned Respect. You finally arrived. You're in the room with the individuals who move things, who shake foundations, who you used to observe from a distance. You're seated at a table where the wine costs more than your monthly obligations. And for the first occasion in your existence, you feel like you belong. They are being courteous. They are responding to your humor. They are soliciting your perspective on matters that carry no real weight. You experience a surge of pride, believing you've bypassed the queue and discovered a shortcut to the summit. But Machiavelli would observe you and see someone being deceived. You are currently standing in one of the most lethal psychological mechanisms ever constructed, the Table of Unearned Respect. Consider the final occasion you were invited somewhere exclusive. Perhaps it was a high-level gathering, a reserved section, or a dinner with men who exist 5 levels above you. You experienced a surge of pride. You felt as though you had finally arrived. You sat there nodding along, responding to their humor, and feeling like one of the group. But Machiavelli would observe you and see a mascot. This is the Table of Unearned Respect. You are in the room, but you aren't a participant. You are being civilized and domesticated by men who don't perceive you as a peer, but as a spectator. They appreciate having you present because your presence validates their status. You are the agreeable individual they maintain around to feel benevolent. But make no mistake, the moment the obligation arrives or a genuine decision demands attention, you will discover you possess zero leverage. The danger here is that this environment executes your hunger. It provides you with the illusion of success without any of the substance. You begin to dress like them, speak like them, and conduct yourself like them. But your financial position and your actual influence haven't shifted an inch. You become a parasite of prestige. You are so occupied enjoying the unearned respect of being in the room that you cease performing the brutal work required to actually command the room. You are being utilized as a prop for their egos. And while you're occupied feeling honored, they are occupied ensuring you remain precisely where you are, one position behind. But there exists a mechanism that is even more seductive because it feeds your ego instead of your insecurity. 3. The echo chamber of low-level victors. This is the environment where you are the dominant figure in a small, stagnant pond. You are the most accomplished individual in your high school companion group. You're the most intelligent person in your local office. You're the one everyone approaches for guidance because relative to them, you're thriving. You feel like royalty. You feel impregnable. This is the most dangerous form of security. Machiavelli warned that this is where princes go to perish. When your ego is sustained by individuals who exist beneath you, you cease evolving. You cease sharpening your blade because there remains nothing left to cut. You begin to believe your own narrative. You look around the room and observe individuals looking up at you, and you think, I've arrived. But arriving in a room full of individuals who have surrendered is merely a slower method of failing. The individuals in this echo chamber don't challenge you. They applaud you. They don't propel you toward growth. They inform you how magnificent you already are. Why? Because as long as you remain at the summit of their small pond, they possess a successful companion they can reference proudly. But the instant you attempt to enter a larger ocean, the instant you attempt to compete with genuine predators, you will discover how soft you have become. If you are the most intelligent person in the room, you are in the wrong room. You are currently in an environment that is decomposing your ambition from the inside out. You have exchanged the discomfort of growth for the comfort of being revered by the mediocre. You are achieving by a standard that carries no significance. While you're savoring the view from the summit of your small hill, the men on the genuine mountains are observing you from above and finding your position amusing. These two environments, the table where you're a mascot and the pond where you're a ruler, are engineered to keep you stationary. They utilize your own ego as a restraint. One makes you a servant to the powerful, and the other makes you a prisoner of the weak. In both scenarios, you are not sovereign. You are a character within someone else's narrative. You must be willing to be the unknown individual in a room full of giants, rather than the celebrated figure in a room full of children. You must be willing to surrender the fabricated respect of the high-status table and the hollow applause of the low-level victors. If you don't, you will spend the remainder of your existence as a local legend or a VIP spectator, never recognizing that you are actually a casualty of your own need for approval. The walls of these mechanisms are constructed of golden praise, but they remain walls nonetheless. And as we advance forward, the mechanisms stop being about your ego and begin being about your survival. We are moving toward the vampires of your existence, the environments that don't merely stall your progress, but actively drain your resources. 4. The Sunken Cost Relationship, the dead weight. You are currently pouring your existence's blood into a ghost. You are remaining in a room, a venture, or a relationship that perished 3 years ago, and the sole reason you haven't departed is because of how much you've already sacrificed. This is the Sunken Cost Relationship, and it is a psychological void. Machiavelli observed that most men are dismantled, not by a single catastrophic error, but by their inability to cut their losses. You tell yourself that you're being loyal. You tell yourself that you're a combatant who doesn't surrender. But there exists a very precise boundary between perseverance and slow-motion self-destruction. Within this environment, you aren't fighting for a future. You are mourning a past. You are remaining with a partner who disrespects your vision, or a business companion who drains your resources, or a social circle that demands your constant attention but provides no leverage. Why do you remain? Because your ego cannot absorb the reality that the last 5 years were misallocated. You feel that if you depart now, you are confessing defeat. So you double down. You invest another year attempting to repair something that is fundamentally broken. You attempt to communicate with individuals who don't speak your language. You attempt to rebuild upon a foundation of sand. Every hour you spend in this environment is an hour you are stealing from the man you are supposed to become. Understand this. The time you have already invested is gone. It is a spent currency. It carries no value in the present moment. The singular question that matters is whether the next hour is going to yield a return. If the answer is no, and you remain anyway, you are no longer a strategist. You are a victim. You are standing in a burning structure because you're upset about how much you invested in the furniture. This environment is a vampire for your sovereign mask. It forces you into a state of constant reactivity. It maintains you in a perpetual state of emotional repair. You cannot sustain a cold, predatory focus on your empire when you are constantly hemorrhaging energy into a sunken cost. Power demands the ability to be ruthless with your own history. You must be capable of examining a 5-year investment, recognizing it as a terminal endpoint and departing without backward glance. If you cannot execute that, you are not in command of your existence. Your past is controlling your present. The world is populated with men who are clinging to things that are dragging them toward the depths. They fear the void, the silence that follows when you sever the cord. They would rather exist in a room full of conflict and stagnation than be alone in a room full of potential. But it is only within that void that the sovereign emerges. You must be willing to burn the bridge while you're still standing upon it, if that bridge leads to a graveyard. 5. The stage of false status, the debt mechanism. You're currently performing an existence you haven't earned for individuals who don't actually respect you. This is the social circle that demands a specific vehicle, a specific timepiece, and a specific lifestyle to maintain membership. This is not a social outlet. It is a debt mechanism. You are purchasing the appearance of power at the absolute cost of the substance of power. Machiavelli warned that a prince who spends lavishly to maintain an image eventually exhausts his resources and must become predatory toward his own people to survive. In your existence, that predator is your debt, and your people are your future years of freedom. When you enter this environment, you are a slave wearing a gold-plated restraint. You are terrified of being exposed. You are terrified that if you cease spending, cease performing, and cease displaying, you will lose your position at the table. And you're correct, you will, because that table is constructed upon sand. The individuals there don't respect you. They respect the shadow you're casting. The moment you cease feeding the light, the shadow vanishes, and so do they. Within this environment, your sovereign mask is fabricated. It's not a tool for control. It's a mask for your insecurity. You are trading your liquid capital, the very resource you need to construct real, unshakable power, for temporary social validation. You are sacrificing your long-term leverage for a short-term sensation. This is a losing exchange without exception. Examine the psychological pressure of this environment. You cannot be honest about your difficulties because that would shatter the illusion. You cannot take risks because you're one unfortunate month away from losing everything you've displayed. You are imprisoned in a cycle of maintenance. You aren't constructing an empire. You're managing a stage set. A genuine man of power would rather exist in a basement with $1 million in leverage than in a mansion with $1 million in obligation. The stage of false status executes your ability to absorb a blow because you are so over-leveraged for the sake of your image. Any minor setback becomes catastrophic. You become desperate. You start executing weak moves. You start soliciting opportunities instead of commanding them. You become the very manifestation we told you to never display. Desperate. 6. The arena of the middle ground, the neutral zone. If you survived the debt mechanism, you likely encountered the most deceptive environment of all, the arena of the middle ground. This is the environment where you attempt to remain neutral during conflict, the gathering where you attempt to satisfy everyone, and the social circle where you refuse to select a side to avoid becoming the antagonist. You believe you're being tactical. You believe you're being the larger man. You believe you're maintaining your options. You're fundamentally wrong. Within the architecture of power, the middle ground is the most dangerous position to occupy, because it's where all the crossfire concentrates. Machiavelli was brutal on this point. He stated that neutrality is the refuge of the weak. When you refuse to select a side, you lose the respect of the victor and the trust of the one who lost. You end up isolated with no allies and a reputation for being someone who cannot be relied upon when genuine pressure arrives. Examine your daily interactions. How many occasions have you suppressed your authentic perspective simply to maintain peace. How many occasions have you remained companions with two individuals who are engaged in conflict with each other, believing you can serve as mediator? You aren't mediating. You're becoming a target for both parties. By occupying the middle, you're signaling that you possess no core, no convictions, and no investment in the outcome. You are a phantom in a room full of combatants. The arena of the middle ground is where honorable men go to be forgotten. It feels secure because you aren't fighting, but you're actually perishing from 1,000 small cuts. You are bypassed for advancement, exception from the genuine inner circles, and ignored when high-stakes decisions are being made. Why? Because no one understands where you stand. And if no one understands where you stand, they can't depend on you. And they certainly won't fear you. You have constructed a position for yourself that is defined by your absence of character. You are being harvested for your compliance. The individuals on the extremes utilize you as a buffer, and when they have finished with you, they will both discard you. To be sovereign, you must be willing to be polarizing. You must be willing to depart the neutral zone and plant your flag. It is far superior to be despised by half the room and respected by the other half than to be vaguely appreciated by everyone while being taken seriously by no one. We have stripped away the illusions of status and the safety of neutrality. We have exposed the mechanisms that consume your finances and the mechanisms that consume your reputation. Now we are approaching the final, most lethal gate. It is the environment that knows your name, your history, and your deepest vulnerabilities. It is the environment that will attempt to execute the ruler before he can even place the crown upon his head. We are returning to the beginning to ensure there is no possibility of return. 7. The ghost of your hometown, the childhood shadow. You have survived the social killing fields and the mechanisms of your own ego, but now you face the final gate. This is the environment that knows your name, your history, and every vulnerability you've ever attempted to conceal. It is the most lethal mechanism of all, the ghost of your hometown. This isn't merely a physical location on a map. It is the social circle of individuals who knew you before you decided to become a ruler. It's the old companions from your formative years, the extended family members, and the original companions who still perceive you as the version of yourself that was easily managed. Machiavelli understood that a prophet is never recognized in his own territory. But he advanced further. He recognized that those who knew you when you were weak will always maintain a psychological anchor upon your consciousness. They don't want you to transform, because your evolution is an indictment of their own stagnation. To them, your growth isn't inspiring. It's an insult. When you return to this environment, whether physically or through the digital tether of social media, you are stepping back into a cage. These individuals will constantly attempt to pull you back to the previous version of yourself. They will reference your old errors, utilize your childhood designations, and remind you of your origins whenever you begin to display genuine power. They aren't executing this to keep you grounded. They are executing this to keep you level with them. You cannot wear the sovereign mask in a room full of individuals who remember you as a servant. To truly ascend, you must be willing to become a stranger to those who no longer serve your mission. You must recognize that the price of your new existence is the death of your old one. If you refuse to eliminate the ghost of your hometown, it will eventually haunt your empire until it crumbles. The truth is, you have been standing in these 7 lethal environments because you feared the cold. You chose the warmth of the herd, the comfort of the middle ground, and the safety of your hometown because you didn't believe you could survive the silence of absolute sovereignty. But by now that avoidance has collapsed. You see the tripwires. You detect the sedatives in the atmosphere. You recognize that the secure rooms you've been inhabiting are actually the locations where your potential was being systematically dismantled. Understanding is no longer sufficient. From this moment forward, every social interaction you engage in must be a tactical choice. Every room you enter must be an environment where you're either acquiring leverage or sharpening your blade. If it is neither, you are the prey. There exists no middle ground. There is no simply socializing. There is only the hunt and the harvested. You have been exposed to the mechanics of your own stagnation. And to return to your old circles now is not an accident. It is a conscious choice to fail. If this realization has struck you with the force of a decisive blow, then you are precisely where you need to be. Align yourself with this mindset. Like this video to signal that you have identified the mechanisms in your own existence. Subscribe to this channel to ensure you never lose your edge. This is not a favor to me. It is a commitment to the continuation of your own journey. We are constructing a fellowship of men who refuse to be domesticated by the environments society has designed for them. For those among you who recognize that the surface-level truth is insufficient, I am inviting you to secure your position in the inner circle. Join the membership. This is the space for the sovereign few who desire deeper insight, stronger tactical control, and access to protocols that are too dangerous for the public algorithm. Inside, we don't merely identify the mechanisms. We construct the empires that replace them. It is the difference between observing the game and owning the field. The door is open for the disciplined, but the positions are limited. You can remain outside with the herd, or you can step into the room where the genuine decisions are made. I want to express gratitude for your presence until the conclusion. Most men disengaged long ago because they couldn't absorb the reflection in the mirror. Your attention and your discipline have been earned, and they are the only instruments that will extract you from the killing fields alive. The fire is burning. The mechanisms are set. But now, you're the only one who knows where they are concealed. Go back out there. Walk through the fire, and never permit them to witness you falter. I will see you applying what you have learned to reclaim your world. The mask is on. Stay cold.